What happens when, like, the loudest voices on the internet declare this massive political disaster, but then 93% of actual voters entirely disagree?
Right. It's just this incredible breakdown.
It really is. I mean, today we're doing a deep dive into this fascinating split in modern political communication.
Yeah, because we basically have a situation where the supposed leaders of a political movement are screaming one thing
Loudly.
very loudly, yeah. And the people who actually show up to the polls are quietly doing something completely different.
Which is wild. And it forces us to ask this really uncomfortable question about how you and all of us consume information.
Exactly. Like, if the people with the biggest megaphones aren't actually speaking for the crowd, well, who are they speaking for?
That is the big question. So welcome to the deep dive.
Happy to be here.
Today, we are looking at the intense political fallout and this sort of rumored fracturing of the MAGA base, all following Donald Trump's 39-day Iran ceasefire.
Right, which was a massive shift.
Totally. And to get to the bottom of this, we are putting two highly contrasting sources head-to-head today.
I love this setup.
It's a fun one. We have a traditional CNN news panel broadcast, and we are layering that with a live, left-leaning Twitch and YouTube streamer.
Who goes by Daily Denims, right?
Yes, Daily Denims. And she is streaming her real-time live reaction to that exact CNN panel.
It's such a perfect collision of old media and new media.
It really is. But, hey, before we jump in, we need to be super clear with you listening right now.
Yeah, this is important.
The sources we are unpacking today contain some highly charged political opinions.
From both ends of the political spectrum, honestly.
Right. And we are absolutely not taking any sides here or, endorsing any of the viewpoints we're about to discuss.
None at all.
Our goal is purely to impartially report on the ideas and arguments contained in these original sources.
Right, just so you can understand the mechanics of this broader conversation happening out there.
Exactly. Okay, so let's unpack this. The inciting incident here is this 39-day Iran ceasefire, right?
Right, and it created this incredibly bizarre alignment in the media.
Bizarre is the word for it.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Because when the administration initiated the ceasefire, it sparked this immediate, just visceral outrage from some of Trump's most loyal and influential supporters.
It's wild to look back at the rhetoric leading up to this moment in our sources.
Oh, it was intense.
Really intense. Like, conservative commentator Megyn Kelly expressed this complete disgust over social media posts from her own side.
Yeah, posts that were casually threatening to wipe out an entire civilization.
Exactly. She literally said, "I am sick of this. You don't threaten to wipe out an entire civilization."
Which is a strong rebuke.
It is. She was pointing out the human cost, right?
Yeah.
The civilian aspect of the conflict.
And this is where it gets surreal, because the streamer we are following, Denims, who sits firmly on the political left.
Very firmly.
Right. She found herself completely agreeing with Megyn Kelly's take. Yeah, Denims even admitted on stream how weird it felt to be aligned with Kelly.
I bet. That doesn't happen every day.
No, it doesn't. But the aggressive rhetoric from certain factions created this strange unifier,
Right.
You had traditional left-wing commentators and prominent MAGA figures, people like Alex Jones, Laura Loomer, and Tucker Carlson.
All on the same side of an issue.
Basically, they all found themselves heavily criticizing the exact same foreign policy move.
Although, to be fair, they were criticizing it for vastly different reasons.
Oh, absolutely. But the fact that they were all shooting at the same target is what's so fascinating.
Right. So to understand this political earthquake, we really have to look at how the media is trying to cover it.
And that brings us to the hilarious clash between our two sources.
It is so funny. I was watching the CNN source to see how they explain this phenomena, and their presentation of the online outrage was honestly baffling.
Baffling is a good way to put it.
Like, to show their audience how angry the internet was, CNN put up this graphic.
Oh, the text chain.
Yes. They called it an arena text chain.
Right.
And it was essentially this sanitized corporate recreation of a group chat. It featured their reporter Aaron Blake with little text bubbles popping up.
Just to simulate what they think online chatter looks like.
Exactly. Denham's reaction to that specific graphic is just gold. It reveals this massive generational and technological divide.
Oh, she completely tore it apart.
She did. She immediately starts mocking it as a fake text chat.
Because, let's be real, organic political group chats on platforms like Discord or Telegram look absolutely nothing like that.
Nothing like it. There are no neat little graphics with polite alternating bubbles in a real Discord server.
No, it's chaos. She laughs at the idea that CNN is putting up pretend messages from what she calls paid actors just to seem relatable.
It felt so out of touch.
Mhm.
It feels like a traditional news network trying to use a map from 1995 to navigate the internet of 2026.
That is a great analogy.
They know the internet is where the conversation is happening, but they are trying to cram it into this neat, broadcast-friendly box.
Right. Denham's even jokes about, like, forcing a mainstream anchor like Jake Tapper to sit and read a live, unmoderated internet chat
Oh,
room.
man, could you imagine?
Just with all the chaotic trolling that actually exists there, it would be a disaster for network TV.
Totally.
But, your 1995 map analogy really hits at the core problem here.
That was so.
Well, what's fascinating here is that the traditional media, represented by that CNN panel, they're trying to quantify the anger of online influencers using a totally outdated framework.
They're using old political rules for new media.
Exactly. They see these loud voices with millions of followers, and they just mechanically categorize them as modern-day political party bosses.
Oh, I see. Like the old war bosses.
Right. In the old days, if the union boss or the party boss said, hey, we're angry about this policy, it meant the thousands of people under them were also going to be angry.
So CNN assumes these influencers speak for and actively direct the entire voter base.
Yes, they assume it's a top-down hierarchy.
Okay, so the influencer gets mad at the ceasefire, therefore the viewers must be mad at the ceasefire.
That's the assumption.
But is that actually how digital influence works? Like, are these creators leading their audience, or are they just following them?
That's the million-dollar question.
Are they the thermostat setting the temperature of the room, or just a thermometer reading it?
I love that framing. And Denham's makes a very compelling mechanics-based argument that they're almost entirely a thermometer.
Just reading the room.
Yeah. She argues that the media has the dynamic completely backward.
Interesting.
And to prove it, she uses this hypothetical involving another massive left-wing streamer, Hassan Piker.
Okay, how does that hypothetical play out?
She says, imagine if Hassan logged on tomorrow and told his audience, hey everyone, you need to vote blue no matter who. I love Chuck Schumer. Go vote for establishment Democrats.
Okay, I can already see where this is going.
Right. The traditional media assumption is that his audience would march out and do exactly that just because he is an influencer.
Because he's the boss telling them what to do.
Right. But Denham's points out the reality. His audience wouldn't change their deeply held progressive or socialist beliefs.
No, they would probably revolt.
Exactly. They would assume he had suffered a mental break.
Or ask if his account got hacked.
Yes. And if he kept pushing establishment politics, they would simply close the tab and find a new creator to watch.
That makes total sense. People don't watch content to have their core values rewritten.
Yeah.
They watch to feel validated.
Exactly. She uses another example with a massive gaming commentator, Asmongold Gold.
Okay, what's her point there?
Her argument is that you could strap someone to a chair and force them to watch 5 hours of his streams every day for a month.
Sounds like torture.
Right. But her point is, you are not going to magically convert their fundamental political ideology.
You just drive them crazy.
Exactly, unless they already agreed with the underlying premise of what he was saying. Audiences seek out creators who reflect their pre-existing worldviews.
Right. But wait, let me push back on this for a second.
Yeah.
If audiences seek out creators who reflect their views, and we know the MAGA base broadly supports Trump, why are these massive right-wing influencers suddenly attacking the White House over the ceasefire?
It's like a contradiction, right?
Yeah. If they're just thermometers, why is the thermometer reading so hot right now?
It's a great point. And a commentator on the CNN panel actually answers that by pointing out the underlying financial mechanics of the influencer ecosystem.
Follow the money.
Always. The reality is, contrarianism sells. Think about how the algorithms on YouTube or Twitter actually function.
They definitely do not reward nuanced, polite agreement.
No, they reward watch time and engagement. And nothing drives engagement quite like outrage and conflict.
So if a Republican president is in office, a Republican influencer simply agreeing with the White House on a Tuesday afternoon doesn't really generate clicks.
It's boring. It doesn't sell subscriptions.
Right.
The CNN panelist notes that guys like Alex Jones, they have massive legal bills to pay.
Yeah.
So attacking the president over the ceasefire might just be a calculated business move.
That is wild to think about.
It's highly profitable to be the most extreme, loudest voice in the room, even if it means attacking your own side.
And traditional media just sees the attacks and assumes the base is fracturing.
Exactly. They completely miss the fact that the influencer is just chasing an algorithm that financially rewards conflict.
Wow. That distinction changes everything, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because if the influencers are just pulling stunts to satisfy an algorithm, we really have to look past them to see what the people actually watching those videos believe.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This is where the CNN panel provides some incredibly revealing, hard polling data.
Data that completely contradicts the online narrative, right?
Yes, entirely. The disparity in the data is basically the entire story here.
Let's hear it.
So CNN asked voters a very simple question. Does Trump have a clear plan for handling the Iran situation?
Okay, straightforward.
Right. And among the broader GOP, the traditional Republican base, only 53% said yes.
Okay, so barely half.
Exactly. But when you look at self-identified MAGA voters,
Yeah.
a staggering 93% said yes.
Wow. 93%. It's basically unanimous.
It is. The influencers are screaming that the sky is falling, calling the ceasefire a total disaster.
Yet the actual core base is standing firmly behind the administration's plan.
Yes. They are definitively not taking their marching orders from social media commentators.
I was trying to figure out why the base is so comfortable with the ceasefire,
Yeah.
especially when the rhetoric leading up to it was so aggressive.
It does seem counterintuitive at first.
It does. But Denham's actually highlights a fascinating psychological mechanism regarding the unintended consequences of military action that explains this perfectly.
She makes that direct comparison to the aftermath of 9/11 in America, right?
Yes, specifically looking at Rudy Giuliani.
The America's mayor phenomenon.
Exactly. Denham's points out that, generally speaking, New Yorkers are incredibly tough on their mayors.
Oh, it's a brutal job. You usually end up pretty unpopular.
Right. But because Giuliani was mayor during 9/11, when an outside aggressor attacked the community, he became a national hero.
The terrorist attack didn't fracture the city's leadership,
No, it unified the population behind whoever was in charge.
which is a well-documented geopolitical mechanism. Military aggression often strengthens the very regimes it aims to destabilize.
Right. If you bomb a foreign country, you don't necessarily inspire the citizens to overthrow their government.
No, you give that government the ultimate scapegoat.
Exactly. The population rallies together to defend themselves from the outside threat.
And Denham's points out that commentators on the left had been warning for months that bombing Iran would just embolden their current leadership.
So it's entirely possible that the 93% of the MAGA base actually understands that geopolitical risk.
They might realize that getting bogged down in a foreign war doesn't help America and only strengthens the regime we are fighting.
That makes a lot of sense. The CNN panelist even mentions that these voters want a focus on kitchen table topics,
Yeah, they care about the cost of living and inflation.
not financing a forever war in the Middle East.
Precisely. The base clearly wants to focus domestically.
But this massive gap between what the 93% want and what the loud algorithm-chasing influencers are screaming for, it creates this deadly political trap.
Especially for anyone trying to build a coalition for the future.
Right. And honestly, no one is caught in that crossfire more directly than Vice President J.D. Vance.
Oh, absolutely. He is right in the middle of it.
The sources dive into some incredible behind-the-scenes reporting on Vance's position.
Yeah, the CNN panel discusses the chronological reporting, the TikTok, basically.
From a New York Times book by Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman, right?
That's the one. It details how Vance was actually in the room, warning Trump in front of colleagues about the dangers of escalating a war with Iran.
So he was pushing back internally.
He was laying out the specific mechanics of how a war would destroy their political coalition.
Because he warned that a conflict would cause regional chaos and massive casualties.
Right, but crucially, he understood the foundation of the movement. He knew the base was built on an America first and no new wars promise.
So initiating a massive overseas conflict would just be seen as a fundamental betrayal by the voters who put them in office.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to remember Vance is looking ahead to the 2028 election.
Right, because Trump won't be on the ballot.
So Vance has to run his own campaign. He is trying to position himself as the responsible adult in the room who helped negotiate this 39-day ceasefire.
He needs to show independent, moderate voters that he can handle complex, high-stakes foreign policy without dragging the country into a war.
But navigating that requires an impossible balancing act.
Why impossible?
Because if he leans too far toward the center to win over those swing voters and takes too much credit for the ceasefire, he risks alienating the loudest voices on the right.
Ah, the influencers we were just talking about.
Exactly. And the CNN panel points out that the administration demands absolute loyalty.
Right.
So if Vance is perceived as distancing himself from the hardline rhetoric, the president might simply throw his support behind someone else.
Like maybe Marco Rubio, who is sort of waiting in the wings.
Exactly. And Denims literally laughs out loud while watching the panel discuss Vance's dilemma.
I mean, it is kind of absurd.
She points out the absurdity of his situation perfectly. He spent a whole year on the campaign trail promising no new forever wars.
Right.
And now he has to go out and defend every single erratic move the administration makes.
All while hoping the guy at the top doesn't turn on him.
And hoping the swing voters don't think he's too extreme.
It's a tightrope. And making that tightrope even more dangerous is the fact that the loud influencers he is trying not to anger are increasingly pushing into extreme territory.
Which moves us from the political calculus of a single politician into a real structural crisis for the party apparatus itself.
Right, because on the CNN panel, one of the commentators brings up a pretty sobering reality about the new right influencer space.
Yeah, this is the darker side of this whole ecosystem.
The panelist specifically points out this pervasive wave of anti-Semitism within these fringe circles.
Right, they mention figures like Nick Fuentes.
Exactly. Noting that while these influencers are loudly attacking the White House over the Iran ceasefire, the language they use is deeply rooted in anti-Israel and overtly anti-Semitic rhetoric.
It isn't just a strategic disagreement over foreign policy anymore.
No, the critiques are steeped in bigotry.
And the CNN panelist offers a very clear institutional perspective on how this functions mechanically.
How do they break it down?
They actually compare this current struggle within the Republican Party to the Democratic Party's recent history.
Like when the Democrats are trying to manage the extreme elements of their own base.
Exactly. Both parties are facing the exact same structural vulnerability here.
So how does that vulnerability actually play out for the party leadership?
It really comes down to party capture. Like, how long can institutional leaders ignore the highly vocal extreme wings of their coalitions before it starts to bleed moderate votes?
That makes sense.
The panelist argues that right now the administration is just trying to ignore the anti-Semitic rhetoric from the fringe.
Hoping it just goes away.
Right. But with the 2026 midterms rapidly approaching, ignoring those megaphones is a massive electoral risk.
Because even if those extreme influencers don't dictate the votes of the 93%, they are the ones generating the viral clips.
Yes. They are creating the narrative that independent and swing voters see on their feeds every day.
Right. If a moderate suburban voter logs online and feels the party is defined by its most extreme influencers, they might just stay home.
Or vote for the opposition entirely.
The traditional party structures have really lost control of their own public relations, haven't they?
Oh, completely. The narrative is no longer shaped by press secretaries or party chairs.
It is shaped by independent influencers who, as we established, are financially incentivized by algorithms to be as contrarian and inflammatory as possible.
And the politicians are terrified of angering the influencers.
Because they assume the influencers control the voters.
Even when the polling data clearly shows they don't.
Man, we have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We looked at how traditional media uses a 1995 map to navigate modern internet culture, totally failing to understand that group chats aren't sanitized corporate graphics.
Right. And we break down the mechanics of the Giuliani effect, explaining why bombing a country often unifies it rather than fractures it.
And we looked at the impossible political tightrope J.D. Vance has to walk heading into 2028. But, the core thread connecting all of this is the media ecosystem itself.
It really is. It ultimately comes down to understanding the mechanics of how information flows to you and recognizing what incentives are driving the people delivering that information.
Absolutely. And so I want you, the person listening to this, to examine your own media diet.
It's so important.
Think about the podcasters you listen to, the streamers you watch, the news panels you tune into. Are they actually challenging your worldview with new, uncomfortable facts?
Or are they just acting as a thermometer?
Right. Are they just reading your temperature and feeding you exactly what you want to hear?
Just confirming your pre-existing biases just to keep your watch time high and sell you another subscription.
It requires a level of critical distance that isn't always easy to maintain.
No, it's tough. Because if traditional media fundamentally misunderstands how the internet works, and if internet influencers are financially forced by algorithms to simply echo and amplify rage,
we are left with this chilling question.
Yeah, who is actually steering the ship of public opinion?
Are we entering an era where political leaders are no longer leading, but simply chasing the tail of an algorithmically generated mob?
That is the ultimate question.
It really is. If the people in charge are taking their cues from algorithms designed only to maximize outrage, it is a wild time to be a voter.
A very wild time.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It is a messy, chaotic landscape out there, but taking the time to really look at how these systems work helps us see past the noise.
Absolutely.
Keep questioning the information you consume, and we will see you next time.